r/legal advice. Sega Sox says, manager asked me how I was holding up mentally, opened up about my disability, and got fired today. Never thought that this would ever happen to me in a million years. I've always heard about this happening to other people, but I never thought that I would go through it. Recently, I've had very bad episodes of depression, PTSD, anxiety, and I got off my meds due to not being in school anymore. My body and mind are going through major adjustments right now. But despite all this happening, I still performed my duties at work, did everything they asked me to, got a little award for doing a good job, and got congratulated by my team members. I got hired at this company at the beginning of the year. Recently, I have been having serious relationship issues that have contributed to the worsening of my mental health. However, I wanted to do my best to keep my home life and work life separate. My boss called me on Microsoft Teams to ask me what was going on because he was concerned for me. I hesitated and told him that recently my mental health hasn't been the best due to my disabilities, but I'm working through it with a therapist. He asked me if there's anything he could do, like provide mental health days off or extend my project deadline. I said thank you, but as of right now, I don't think there's a need for it, since I believe I can get through it. He said okay, but to let him know if I change my mind or if things worsen. Unfortunately, it did. I started throwing up from being overwhelmed, my right eye became blind, and I was having extremely dark thoughts. This morning, I told him that I would consider not take the mental health days off, and I would like to learn more about how they work. I told him that this is specifically to get my disability under control because I don't want it to interfere with my work. He was insisting me to take it easy, but I kept pushing forward. I ended up taking it a little easier, like he suggested, just to not overwork myself. In this state, he told me he was going to talk to ours about the mental health days and get back to me. I said okay. Around 3 PM today I get a call from my two bosses and the hour lady. They then hit me with, hi, so we made a decision here at company name, and we have come to the decision to terminate your employment due to lack of performance. Question mark, 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 question mark. This whole time I was getting complimented by the team, providing good teamwork, and did my work, and skipped my lunches to do work, only to get hit with this. The second I open up about my disability and how I might need to be accommodated this one time, I get fired. Coworkers contacted me in shock today after I got fired because they were pretty confused after hearing their reasoning. I'm confused too. What the frick do I even do? My coworkers are telling me to sue them for a disability violation, but I don't know where to go from here. This shit. Throwaway 72,752 says, I got hired at this company at the beginning of the year. This stood out to me. You are still in your first 90 days, the time period a company often reserves as a trial period to ensure their new employee is indeed a good fit. You having issues to the point they inquire about it so early probably tipped the scale against you. Ohakaiguis1 says, even during a probation period you can't fire someone simply for having a disability. Valerangor 1020 says, boss called up in before they knew about the disability. He wouldn't be asking what was going on if her performance wasn't up to snuff. Kilb0T47 says, always lie about everything. At work everything is awesome, you are part of the team. Yay, if you say anything else they will can you. Monkeyman80 says, you point this as disability, but it sounds more like you had really poor performance that caused your manager to reach out and had even worse reactions after. You need accommodations before those happened, and not just disabled. Most of the time ADA isn't great for what you wanted. It can be, but that's specific. Sega Sox says, He called me and checked my work and told me I was doing excellent and I was ahead of all the checkpoints. My manager is very blunt with the others when it comes to what he expects, so why would he lie? The guy before me didn't do his job and was friends with my manager. Everyone hated him, yet he stayed longer than I ever did. Monkeyman80 says, it's very odd you're above checkpoints and then offering extending deadlines. Nepotism or friends are legal. Were you actually on time to every shift, doing work as expected? Honor a litigator says, my boss called me on Microsoft Teams to ask me what was going on because he was concerned for me. What prompted that call? What concerning behaviors were you exhibiting at work, if any? And I was having extremely dark thoughts. Did you tell people at work about the dark thoughts, and if so, what were they? r/legal advice. Kabusisa Beast says, getting sued with the goal of bankrupting me with legal fees? Virginia. I have been on an HOA board for several years now, and last year a very litigious lawyer well known in our area also joined the board. He's quite well off, owns several properties in and around our city, and has a reputation of suing anyone he disagrees with for defamation to try and rack up legal fees against the other person. Apparently, from what I hear, he has a lawyer that doesn't charge him, so it doesn't cost him anything but his time. He has lost all of these suits as far as I'm aware of, but each person he's sued racks up quite a hefty legal bill between appeals and whatnot. He and I have not gotten along over the past year, and more recently it has been alluded to that if I don't let him just have his way, I'll be next in his crosshairs. I have been sure to be pleasant and choose my wording carefully via email, but I worry that's irrelevant as the goal if I'm sued is to just cost me as much as possible. I'm aware of anti-slap suits, but is there any advice in both the short term and if a lawsuit is brought against me? Additional information, this person recently appealed a defamation case with the intent to bankrupt the defendants all the way to the state Supreme Court, where he sued every member of a previous neighborhood for millions for insisting he recuse himself from that board. My understanding is he was laughed out of the state Supreme Court, but each defendant was left with a 5 to 6 figure legal bill defending themselves. Also, please no names or identifying information, even if this person is well known. Internet Ghost says, if the lawyer is weaponizing the court in an effort to harass you, you can also make a report to the bar. Odapism41 says, I would also check and see if he is a vexatious litigant. But keep anti-slap in mind, you can be rewarded lawyer fees if you peruse them. Christopher Atchison says, yeah, sounds like he is abusing the courts. Make a complaint to the legal board. As for handling him, just don't say a word to him or even acknowledge him in any way. He can't sue you for ignoring him. If he tried, he'll be laughed out of court. Also worth noting, you can sue for your legal fees, especially if you win against him. There is free legal advice SND. In some states a lawyer has to do some much pro bono, free work to keep their license in good standing. Wobble Frog says, read up on vexatious litigant, basically someone who does this. You could get both legal fees and punitive damages against him if your lawyer knows what he is doing. You might also manage to get him reprimanded or disbarred by the state bar if you can get enough of his other victims to file complaints. Snookerkiz9421 says, as an HOA board member, I'm covered by directors and emissions insurance paid for by the HOA, and hopefully you are too. If whatever made up cause of action he comes up with is based on your work as a director, let the insurance company represent you and handle the legal components. Truthfully, I would resign if there was any legal exposure that could personally bankrupt me. I would lean on the association attorney to understand what the risks are. If his threats are about non-HOA stuff, that's a whole different story. No good deed goes unpunished, as they say. No one signs up to volunteer as an HOA director to have their finances destroyed. Sorry you're dealing with this. Kabusisa Beast says, I believe there is some insurance that covers board members, but I'm not sure to what extent and how board member vs board member works. It certainly does suck as I joined the board to keep things reasonable, and it's been fairly easy going into the past year. I feel too stubborn to just let him have his way, and I fear for what would happen to the neighborhood if he did. r/legal advice. Lias B says, my girlfriend's ex and her friends stole our belongings. I have witness testimony. What do I do? I recently found out and got solid proof that my girlfriend's ex went into our old place with 3 of her friends and stole many of our belongings. This includes guitars, clothes, music equipment, books, and many sentimental items. What I have is evidence that her ex lied about the items being thrown away due to water damage which didn't happen, and witness testimony to one of the first time they raided our things. We had to fly out of state for a wedding and we ended up moving/staying in Wisconsin, and we planned to retrieve the items in December from the prior residences in Pennsylvania. Witness says the theft took place in July/August. Her ex blatantly lies and calls me crazy and the others involved refuse contact. What do I do? This is hundreds of dollars or belongings and extremely sentimental items. I do not know anything about this type of stuff or how to handle this scenario legally. Snag2469 says, I'd think calling the police to report it would be step 1. Lias B says, would I call the local police where she lives? Snag2469 says, I would call the police local to where the theft took place. Low Decibel says, you're asking this now, when it happened 8 months ago. My goodness, things must move slowly down south minus the weather. Scaradofmaunshadao says, were you still paying rent or making any other payments while you were gone? Were you listed on the lease? Was there a written agreement that you would be coming back for the items and the other party agreed to store them in the home? If not, the items might be considered abandoned, and there's not much you can do. Check online for the appropriate legal statutes in the area of the house, and go from there. Particular Summer 424 says, get your witnesses' info and possibly a written statement of the facts and contact the police. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.